Story 1. Wife cheated and left me for her friend 5 years ago. Now she wants me back because he dumped her. I, a 58-year-old man, went through a painful divorce 5 years ago when my ex-wife Sarah, who is now 48, cheated on me and left me for her friend. At that time, we had been married for 11 years and had 2 children who are now 13 and 10. Sarah was my second wife, as my first marriage ended tragically with the loss of my school sweetheart in an accident. My romantic journey has been marred by numerous difficult moments, with multiple dark chapters in my life. As I approach my 60s with a sense of gratitude and resilience, I've managed to navigate through all these challenges. After the tragic loss of my first wife, I was devastated. We didn't have any children together, which left me feeling like I had nothing to anchor me in life. I was in my early 40s at the time, feeling utterly lost and unsure about the direction my life should take. I fell into a pattern of heavy drinking and other self-destructive behaviors during that difficult period. That's when I met Sarah at a bar, both of us nursing our respective heartbreaks. We quickly formed a connection, and I won't deny it, I was in a pretty pitiful state, craving emotional support. My attachment to Sarah grew rapidly in a short span of time, and within a year of dating, she proposed to me and we decided to get married. I can't say I was entirely ready for marriage, but Sarah was eager for a commitment, and I went along with it without giving it too much thought. She was in her early 30s and had a strong desire to settle down. Interestingly, she had previously ended her casual relationship with her friend due to his commitment issues. They had been friends with benefits, and while she had developed feelings for him, he didn't share the same sentiment. After years of a physical relationship, she eventually decided to move on from him. When Sarah made it crystal clear that she wanted marriage or nothing, I couldn't bear the thought of losing her. Her friend had already married someone else in a private ceremony. Looking back, some might say I made a hasty decision, but at the time, it felt like the right choice. Truth be told, I don't regret it. I had a fulfilling life with Sarah, even though we had fewer children than I initially imagined. Despite having children, including our 2 beautiful kids, Sarah and I enjoyed a stable marriage for 12 years. However, things took a turn when a mutual friend, who happened to be her ex-partner, entered our lives. Sarah rekindled her connection with him, ultimately leading to our divorce. I retained custody of our children and have since centered my life around them. The reason I'm sharing this is because Sarah unexpectedly showed up at my doorstep last week, expressing her desire to be a part of our children's lives. When I first laid eyes on her, I struggled to recognize the woman before me. She appeared pale and utterly miserable, with puffy red eyes that suggested she hadn't slept in a while. Overwhelmed by emotions, she broke down upon seeing me, and I couldn't turn her away. I allowed her inside. Actually, I thought something terrible happened to her ex-partner. She hugged me and cried. When I asked her if everything was okay, she kept saying sorry and apologizing for leaving me. The kids were on their summer camp, and I was alone at home. When she calmed down, she told me her ex-partner had abandoned her and went back to his native country in the south of Europe. He just left a note which said, "I'm sorry, I can't marry you. I have a wife and children at home." That was heartbreaking. He had been living a dual life, exploiting Sarah's feelings. He kept her hanging for 4 years, didn't marry her, and instead abandoned her. I don't know if I should feel happy or sad about the whole thing. While Alex may have played a role in the situation, I refrained from saying any hurtful things to Sarah. My heart went out to her, but the reality was that there wasn't much I could do to help her. She expressed that I was her last hope and that she had returned to me because she believed I would forgive her and take her back. However, I explained that I had moved on from our relationship. Although I harbored no ill will toward her, I cannot let her walk over me again. I had forgiven her for cheating on me once, but she did that again. She was so madly in love with her ex-partner that she didn't think twice about leaving her children for him. She remained loyal to me for 11 years only because her ex-partner was out of the country. She came back now only because her ex-partner left her. I told her I empathize with her but cannot trust her again. She started sobbing again and begged for forgiveness. I told her that I had forgiven her, and the best I can do is let her have joint custody of her children if the kids are okay with that. She was not ready to leave at all. Unfortunately, I had to be firm and somewhat rude to make her leave. I told her I had to step out and insisted that she needed to go. Although she complied and left, her sudden reappearance has left me feeling quite unsettled. I've had my fair share of drama in life, and all I desire now is a peaceful existence. To be honest, even considering the idea of joint custody for our children feels like a significant concession. She very obviously doesn't care about them, so why would you allow her back into their lives if she'll just take off again? At the very end of this affair, update 1. Hello everyone. Thanks for all the kind words. I appreciate all the comments, good, bad, and everything. This update is regarding the background context of my current situation, so if you're not interested, you could skip it. A few of you asked for the details about my past with Sarah and how we ended up here, so here we are. As I mentioned, my marriage was smooth for 12 years. Our problem started when Sarah's long-lost love came back into her life. He was the same guy with whom she had broken up due to commitment issues. He went back to his country after the breakup, and now he's back in the city, and Sarah couldn't stop seeing him. Initially, I didn't mind when he occasionally visited us. She said she had moved on. I had complete faith in her. We had shared 11 years of marriage with 2 children, and during all those years, she had been a loving wife and an exceptional mother. There had never been any indications or red flags to make me suspect anything untoward. Then one day, she returned home and locked herself in a room. Despite our repeated attempts to call her for dinner, knocking on the door several times, she remained unresponsive. I called her phone to check if everything was fine. She texted that she was fine but needed some more time alone. I didn't bother her and slept in the living room. The next day, she tried to be normal, but it was evident that she was not. I asked her what was wrong. She said she had a fight with her sister, but nothing serious, and she would deal with it. She didn't want to share the details, and I didn't insist. I didn't try to find the details from her sister, because I don't like meddling in their private matters. She knew that trait about me, and maybe that's why she lied and made the stuff about her sister. I took her words to be true, but as the days passed, I realized it was not about her sister. The change in her behavior revolved around her friend. Up until that point, she had been cheerful, discussing her friend and making plans to invite him over for dinner and drinks. However, after that evening, she abruptly stopped mentioning him altogether. I attempted to inquire about him, but any discussion on the topic was met with silence from Sarah. Additionally, while Sarah had clashed with her sister on numerous occasions in the past, her level of distress and agitation had never been this pronounced. So yes, it was my assumption, but it turned out to be true. Instead of spying on her and finding evidence, I confronted her if she had cheated on me with her friend, and gladly she accepted. Instead of gaslighting the situation and denying it, she confessed that when her ex-partner returned back, she couldn't stop herself from meeting him. It started with friendly meets at public places, then catching up at his place, which reignited the stuff between them. I asked her if she still loved him. She said no. She pleaded with me for a chance. She said she got carried away at that moment. It had happened once, and she said she was guilty of her actions, and it was killing her from inside. She had ended her involvement with her friend after that evening. Sarah confessed that she had feelings for him when they were together, but he never reciprocated her emotions and had used her solely for physical reasons. She broke down and made heartfelt promises about never betraying me again. Despite my own hurt and confusion, I found myself falling for her all over again. I was deeply wounded, but I was determined to salvage our marriage for the sake of our children. The younger one was barely 4 then. Divorce meant separation from my children, and I couldn't fathom that. You could say I was weak for not taking that severe step. I forgave her and gave another chance to my marriage. I made it clear that if she ever betrays me, that would be it. And cheating doesn't only mean sexual relationships. I won't forgive her even if it's just emotional. She agreed. We rebuilt our relationship and went on date nights and vacations. It went smooth for a few months until I got suspicious again. This time, I didn't let the red flag slide. Sarah cheated on me once, and this time I was super cautious. It was like 4 years ago, so I don't remember the details accurately. However, the dynamics of our relationship didn't substantially improve. She continued to be distant and absent-minded, failing to allocate enough time for me. Our children often appeared moody at home, yet they smiled while texting and giggled while talking to others on the phone. Sarah remained glued to her phone, and she actively avoided any intimacy in our relationship. Her mood hadn't improved either, leaving me feeling disconnected once more. I confronted her head straight, but she didn't admit anything was wrong. She indeed played defensive and tried to gaslight the situation by making it about me. She blamed me for not trusting her. She played the victim, that I was constantly keeping an eye on her because she had cheated once and all that. I tried to defend myself but realized it was futile, so I did what everyone does in this situation: look for evidence to expose her. I snooped into her phone and found she had not changed the password, which meant there was nothing in the phone. There were chats with her ex-partner, but it was a normal conversation from a month ago, at the time that she had first cheated on me. I couldn't find anything on her phone. I was thinking of other means to find the cheating, but before that, she confessed. She got to know that I checked her phone. She said that if I was doubting her, I would eventually uncover the truth, so better she comes clean. She said she tried to distance herself after the first confrontation, but he begged her to return. She had initially avoided her friend, fearing that it would create problems in our relationship. However, this time, he assured her of his love and commitment, expressing his intention to marry her once he sorted out some personal matters. So they decided to keep their relationship a secret. She admitted to feeling guilty about cheating on me but couldn't resist the opportunity to be with her affair partner. I realized that she had never truly stopped loving him but had suppressed her feelings due to his past commitment issues. Now that her ex-partner was serious about her, she couldn't resist. She asked for a divorce and I wanted custody of my children. I felt she also wanted to get rid of the children because she immediately agreed and requested me to let her meet them weekly. I nodded, but she had to break this news to the children, and she could use any reason she wanted, but it shouldn't show me in any negative light. She told the children that we were divorcing because we fell out of love. It was difficult for them. We went through a lot of tears and pleadings from the children to reconcile. Their cries did make me bitter towards her, but eventually, I realized that even if she changed her mind about divorce, I couldn't forgive her this time, so divorce was the best option for us. I promised the children I would prove to be a good father. They didn't doubt that. I've always been an involved parent, not like the one who just shows up. It was not difficult for me to take up my full-time role as a single parent, yet children missed their mom. Our divorce was settled amicably. I was undeniably hurt, yet I somehow managed to refrain from harboring a grudge. Some might call me a coward, or perhaps it was my age that led to my somewhat immature response. Regardless, I made the decision to let her go. Those initial months were exceptionally challenging, particularly with our younger child. I tried my best to provide them with multiple vacations, trips, picnics, and all sorts of activities to keep them happy. Sarah visited them once a week, but eventually, she relocated with her ex-partner to Alabama. By then, the children had moved on, and so did I. In the last 4 years, the children have grown to be kind, resilient, and emotionally strong. Sarah used to call them after moving out from here. Initially, the children used to hang up on her and despise her, but with time, they became forgiving and understanding. They're now cordial with her. As for the current situation, when my children came back from their summer camp and got to know about their mother, they were not so sorry for her. They were like, she chose that for herself. I tell you, these young generation kids, they freaked out when I told them about my proposal of joint custody. They refused to see her or live with her. I reassured them that nothing would be settled without their approval, emphasizing that it was ultimately their decision. They made it clear that they didn't want to be away from me, and they voiced their concerns that Mom might abandon us again if her ex-partner resurfaces. I can't help but wonder what kind of hold her ex-partner has over her that keeps drawing her back even after multiple betrayals. If she was capable of cheating the first time without showing any signs of red flags, then she was more than capable of doing it again. She was obviously hung up on this guy for quite some time, and even though he was out of sight, he most definitely wasn't out of mind. After finding out your partner is cheating, it seems only fair to be able to ask questions and seem suspicious. It's a well-known fact that a cheater who gets defensive when asked random questions often has something to hide. As for an update, I've come to the realization that dealing with Sarah requires a certain level of thick skin. To those who may have labeled me a S, I'm not quite sure what that means, but I can say that I'm definitely an old school guy, and yes, quite literally, I'm 58 years old. We don't hunt down women and scorch them down if they stop loving us. We let her go. However, this doesn't mean we let them walk all over us. We draw that line. To no bad feelings for negative comments, but yeah, just wanted to clarify things on behalf of all the old school men. So Sarah came back again. This time, the kids were at home. They flipped out on seeing her. I asked them to be well behaved. They spoke to her for some time and then pushed off to their room. Sarah asked me if I had given a thought about reconciliation. I said reconciliation is not on the table for sure, and also the children don't want to stay with her, but I'm okay if she could convince them. I don't want to make assumptions, but it does seem like Sarah might not be keen on having children either. She mentioned that she couldn't afford to have the children with her and had been staying on an old friend's couch, someone who could ask her to leave at any time. While I was aware of her financial struggles, I had no inkling of just how dire her situation was before we got married. She used to work as a receptionist. She left the job shortly after our marriage. I tried my best to provide her with a good life. During our divorce, she was compensated fairly. I asked her what she did with that money. She gave it to her ex-partner, Alex, to help him with his day business. Not only that, she had to take up 2 jobs to run their kitchen in Alabama. Despite all this, her ex-partner left her. He took all their savings while leaving only the money she had kept away from Michael's knowledge, which was there with her. She used that to travel back and had been surviving on that. I offered to lend her some money to rent a condo and get her life together, but she denied it. She said she always sought love and not money, and if money was that important, she wouldn't have left a stable life with me for broke Alex. She wanted to live with us like a family, but that was not possible. Sometimes I do feel bad for her, but we don't have space for her in our lives. I gave her a check and asked her to rent a house and get a job and also seek therapy. It's evident that Sarah is going through a difficult time and could use some support. I've asked my kids to be compassionate toward their mom since, after all, she gave birth to them. They have become more gentle with her, but they are still not open to having her back in their lives. Sometimes Sarah sends me texts questioning if she deserves all the hate she's been receiving. I'm at a loss for words, but it's undeniable that she has hurt both me and the children deeply. You absolutely went above and beyond what she deserved. I think by giving her a check, you are, in a way, letting her walk all over you. She dug her grave. Now she can lie in it or dig herself out by herself. Update 3. Thanks all for the kind words in my last posts. I didn't update it for so long because nothing much has happened. It was the same cycle of Sarah showing up randomly, breaking down, and asking me to get back together. But in the last 7 months, my family dynamics have gotten complicated. I think around 1.5 to 2 years back, before Sarah came back into her life, I met this woman. I call her Rebecca. She's 62. She runs a flower boutique and is as active as a 30-year-old. We started as friends, but after a year of getting to know her, I genuinely enjoyed her company. I often spent my evenings and weekends at her shop, assisting her with various tasks. I admired the way she managed everything independently. She had lost her husband at a young age, and she had raised 3 kids as a single mom. Now that her children had grown up and moved out, she's been selling flowers. This is her livelihood. I feel so lively around her. I didn't mention Rebecca on this thread or to Sarah because then it would be like I'm not reconciling with Sarah because of Rebecca. It's nothing like that. I don't intend to marry Rebecca or something. We are just too old. These intersects, we're trying to enjoy the last leg of our lives without any BS. My children know about her, and they're happy that I have someone to share my feelings with. My older one is moving out of high school this year, and soon the younger one would also move out for high school or college. I'm not emotionally dependent on Rebecca, but I think having someone, at least a friend, to share your thoughts at this age is precious. I had told Rebecca about Sarah's visit, and she reacted sympathetically to the entire stuff. However, this didn't go well with Sarah. One day, she saw me at Rebecca's shop and spied on me for the entire evening. I didn't notice it. With our body language, She understood that I was dating Rebecca. I think she followed us, and that's how she saw me visiting Rebecca's place in the evening and spending my nights there. One day, as I was leaving Rebecca's place, Sarah confronted me with an accusation that left me stunned. She angrily exclaimed, "Is this the person who's keeping you away from me? The one you're seeing?" I was taken aback by her choice of words. How could she say such a thing? I attempted to defuse the situation and calm her down, but she continued to push boundaries, and I eventually responded with my own share of frustration. After all, she had cheated on me twice, abandoned her own children, and now had the audacity to reappear in my life expecting me to take her back. While in my case, there's no cheating involved, yet she called me names and abused Rebecca. I told her never to show her face again. She was a selfish woman, and she has always thought only about herself. She left after that, but a few days later, Rebecca's shop was vandalized with a note. "Leave him." It was a no-brainer guess. It was Sarah. There was no camera installed in her shop, yet I insist that Rebecca log a complaint against Sarah based on the last incident. Rebecca was reluctant to go into legal battles, but I didn't let it slide. I called Sarah and asked her to come home. I berated her in front of the children and threatened her with the police case if she ever troubled us poor Rebecca. I didn't want to do this in front of the children, but she called the children to apparently expose me. Obviously, the children sided with me and unleashed their suppressed anger. She was the one who had ruined my kid's childhood, and now she was acting all victim and blaming me for our shambled marriage. It's been a month or so since all this. It was clear that Sarah did not re-enter our lives. My kids and I apologized to Rebecca for Sarah's outburst and helped her get her shop back in order. My children have been insisting that I marry Rebecca before they leave for college, but neither Rebecca nor I have any desire to enter into marriage again, even though we share a deep love for each other. I've yet to voice these feelings to her. I don't want to get into this marriage crap again. I don't think it's for me. I'm happy being a father of 2 children and Rebecca's boyfriend. This is exactly why you don't enable the people who wrong you, because in some way, they twist things around and think they have a chance with you, which they shouldn't. She didn't deserve your time or energy in the first place. What do you make of OP entertaining Sarah when she came crawling back? Now on to the next story. Story 2. Before we start, if you're enjoying this video so far, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. Now let's continue. My model girlfriend was using me for money, so I secretly used her contacts to get revenge and got paid handsomely for it. Now exes trying to win me back. I, 29M, have been dating my fiancée Bella, 25F, for almost a year now. Bella is an aspiring model and is extremely stunning. So much so that for the first few months, I could barely even believe that I was with her. My friends couldn't believe it either because I'm an average-looking guy myself. And even though people do say that looks aren't everything, it did feel strange for me to be with this woman who was so conventionally attractive, and I was just a normal-looking guy. I was content with just dating, but then 6 months in, she started dropping hints about wanting to get married. I was smitten with her by then, so at that point, I would have done whatever she asked of me. So I decided against proposing to her. 7 months after being together, and she said yes without a second thought. My friends and family were a little taken aback by how soon it was all happening, but as long as I was happy, they were too and didn't question it much. We've been relatively happy in our relationship, and even though we've had our ups and downs, I believe that the love we had for each other was real, and it was for me at the very least, if not for her. But then around 3 months ago, she'd invited her friends over for help with wedding planning. I'd been napping in the bedroom because I was feeling really under the weather that day, but after a while, I got up to get myself some food. But then I stopped right outside the kitchen when I heard Bella and her friends talking about me in the living room. I was just out of their sight, and they couldn't see me, so they continued talking crap about me and laughing at their own mean jokes. They were making fun of all my insecurities, and I could feel myself go red in the face standing there. But it all got worse when Bella herself joined in and made a joke about how she'd bagged herself a sugar daddy with no looks and was basically living the dream. There was a lot of laughter at that horribly insensitive joke, and so I went back to my room because I'd heard enough. I didn't even want to know what else she had to say because my insides were on fire. I wanted to dump her on the spot, but I kept my cool and decided to play the long game instead and use her for my own sake, just like she'd been using me. I was using her for money. I'm a web developer and I earn well enough, so I'm the one who's covering all the bills because Bella can't afford to. She's just starting out as a model, and so she doesn't get paid enough for her gigs to actually be able to afford the lifestyle she wants, and neither are her parents rich enough to fund it for her. So she relies on me heavily for money. She even moved in with me just 2 months after we started dating because she told me she didn't have enough money to cover rent at the time. I told her she could stay with me for a while, but then she never moved out, and ever since then, I've been paying for everything she wants. I'm the one who pays for her cabs when she has to travel for auditions, for her clothes, accessories, and makeup and whatnot. So she's not entirely wrong. She did bag a sugar daddy, but I'm just a couple of years older, so I don't think that's accurate. After I overheard her conversation with her friends, I went back to my room, and I was contemplating breaking up with her over this, but then I decided not to dump her because I had a way better plan in mind. I have a cousin who was also trying to become a model, and I knew for a fact that this cousin of mine, let's call her Irene, 23F, was loaded. Her father was a hugely successful business tycoon, but unfortunately, didn't approve of his daughter's career choices since he believed that it was too risky, and so he wasn't going to let her help her out until she bagged some gigs on her own. She'd moved here a few months after I met my girlfriend, and I knew that she'd appreciate my help, but Bella stopped me from giving her a head start by telling me how competitive the modeling world is, and that Irene could potentially become a threat to her if we helped her with getting contacts. So unfortunately, Irene had to struggle on her own to make a place for herself because while she did have her dad's credit card, she didn't have any contacts, and she was really young, so she didn't know how to network either. But after what I overheard, I made up my mind to help Irene out, and in exchange for that, she'd just have to send me half of whatever she made through every gig that she landed through me then onwards. I started keeping track of all the auditions that my girlfriend went to and all the people I met at those auditions and then proceeded to send those details to Irene. I kept track of her auditions. Sometimes she'd get the gig and sometimes she wouldn't, but every single time, she'd send me a whopping $1,500 because she was mad at her dad for not helping her out. It was a bit much, but who was I to complain if she wanted to teach her dad a lesson, and I profited off of her anger? Then heck, she could be as angry as she wanted to be. I was cool with this arrangement that we'd worked out because I was getting richer with every passing month. Of course, I had to hide all of this from my girlfriend because she'd definitely get suspicious if I suddenly started expressing any interest in these things that I'd never bothered with earlier. So this went on for a couple of months, and with time I stopped feeling anything for my girlfriend at all. I still didn't dump her because I was using her contacts and stuff to help out Irene, but other than that, I'd keep my interactions with her to a minimum. I'd be romantic and sweet to her when we were together, so she had no clue what was really happening. I'd also told my parents that I wasn't actually going to marry Bella just a week after I found her talking crap about me behind my back. So while they didn't know the details of my situation, they knew that no wedding was going to take place, but I didn't tell Bella that obviously, and she continued to plan and told me to book the venue and the vendors, which I agreed to but never did. This week, several things happened at once, and she finally found out what I'd been up to. The invitations were supposed to be sent out this week, but like I'd said, I hadn't made any arrangements. And in addition to that, my cousin Irene finally got signed to a really reputable modeling agency. She was incredibly grateful to me, and even her dad was, which is why he sent me $5,000 for helping her out all through the way. They're pretty generous if I'm being honest. So a few days back, when Bella asked me if the invitations had been sent or not, I decided to finally come clean to her and end things. I'd spent quite a few months putting up this facade, and now that I had made enough money off of her, I didn't feel like putting on the show anymore. Irene was where she wanted to be and wouldn't need my help anymore, and I didn't have any feelings for Bella either, so there was just no point in staying with my girlfriend any longer. So when she asked about the invitations, I decided to tell her the truth and said that I hadn't made any arrangements for the wedding at all. In fact, there was no wedding at all. Now she was obviously stunned by that and asked me if I was joking. So then I finally told her that I'd heard her little joke the other day, and I hadn't forgiven her for it. When she asked me why I'd stuck around for so long, I told her about how I used her to push Irene's career ahead and how she paid me handsomely for all that I'd done for her. Now that I was finally telling her the truth, there didn't seem any point in hiding anything from her, so I was completely honest with her. She was flabbergasted when she learned what I'd been up to these past few months, and her reaction was nothing short of hysterical. She was crying, screaming, and being all melodramatic about how I betrayed her and used her. I told her that this was all happening because of what she'd said to her friends behind my back, and she started talking about how it was just a joke. Well, it wasn't a very funny one, and it was actually really hurtful and demeaning. We argued over that for a while, but then she just gave up and told me that I'd betrayed her in the worst possible way over a joke, and she'd never wish this even on her enemies. I betrayed her. Complete breakdown over it, and said that she'd actually loved me. But I hadn't even deemed her worthy of a discussion and decided to essentially ruin our relationship over a silly joke. I stuck to what I believed in and told her that for me, it wasn't just a joke because it hit a little too close to home. Jokes are meant to be funny, not downright malicious, which is what her joke sounded like. And it wasn't just what she'd said that hurt. It was the fact that she'd been sitting among her equally vapid friends, and they'd been making fun of the way I looked, but she didn't even try to defend me and instead joined in on the fun that they were having at my expense. That's what hurt the most. I was the one who was paying for every single thing that she wanted and making sure she was happy all the time, so I definitely didn't deserve this in return. In fact, I'd started working even harder to provide for the both of us, so it obviously hurt to hear her make fun of me just because I wasn't as conventionally attractive as she was. She packed her stuff up right after the argument and was gone within an hour. I didn't try to stop her either because of how angry and hurt I was, so there was nothing that could have been done to prevent her leaving. The next 2 days, I drowned myself in work so that I wouldn't have to feel anything. I mean, I'd obviously fallen out of love with her a while back, but I was still used to having her around, and sometimes I'd feel like I could fall back in love with her again. But now that it was all over, I didn't know what to do with myself or with the empty house that I'd come back to. This morning, I received a text from Bella saying that she still did love me and was willing to work things out if I wanted to. That she missed me terribly and couldn't imagine a life without me. I haven't replied to it yet because I honestly don't know what to say to her. I don't know if I miss her or if I love her or if I want to get back with her or not. I just don't have an answer for anything at this point because my feelings are actually all over the place. I don't know what to say to her. I feel like a total jerk for what I did to her, and maybe she was right. Maybe I overreacted and completely blew things out of proportion. I overreacted. Bella to push Irene's career and get rich myself. So I didn't reply to Bella's text. I read a lot of the messages and comments on my post and realized that I might have been out of line for what I did. And I was even about to reach out and apologize to Bella for whatever happened. But then I received a text from a friend of hers saying that she had something to tell me. She sent me a screenshot of Bella texting her saying that she needed a place to crash for a while until her loser BF, referring to me, patched things up with her or until she found someone new. This friend of hers told me that apparently, Bella had sent this to their entire friend group and had claimed that she left after a fight, but she hadn't yet told them what the fight was about. Her friend didn't feel comfortable with the fact that Bella was still talking badly about me even though we were supposed to get married in a couple of months. And so she felt like she had to tell me what Bella had been saying behind my back to get it off her conscience. She didn't know that I was already well aware of what Bella had been saying about me, but I'm thankful that her conscience kicked in at the right time and prevented me from apologizing to Bella and taking her back in. I dodged a bullet there. All the criticism and flack I've received from my decision to stick with Bella just for revenge was perfectly valid. And in fact, that was what made me rethink my stance on this whole situation and almost made me apologize to her. But unfortunately, we were all being played since Bella really did deserve whatever I did to her. Maybe if it had been a normal and less self-centered human being, then I would have believed that I was in the wrong here, but it's Bella after all. She's literally the epitome of narcissism and selfishness. I can't believe that she was willing to get back with me just because she needed a place to stay, which isn't really surprising because she had become pretty lazy in the past few months. She'd only go for auditions and do nothing else around the house. But I was perfectly happy with cleaning up after the both of us since she was the one helping me bring in the big bucks from Irene. She didn't even go shopping, so I was saving more than I was spending. When I saw that screenshot, I was so thankful that I hadn't texted her back yet, and after this I wasn't going to get back to her anyway. She was just a despicable person in general, and even though what I did to her was nothing short of psychotic, I'd say she totally deserved that. I've blocked her on every platform possible, and I'm even thinking about moving out into a bigger apartment so that I don't have to deal with her anymore. I already made a lot of money thanks to Irene and her dad, and I'm due for a raise at work in a couple of weeks anyway, so I might as well get a head start on the move and start looking for places. My friends were pretty surprised when I broke the news to them that the wedding was off since they had no idea. But when I filled them in on the details, they were kind of shocked that I'd even pulled off something like this at all. Some of them believed that she deserved it, while the rest think that I took things way too far and I should have just ended the relationship the day I heard her joking. I bet everyone will agree that she deserved what I did when they heard about her false confession of love just so that she could continue to live with me without paying rent or making any contribution to the household expenses. Even if she does manage to find a guy who's willing to let her move in after a few months of dating, I don't. Aftermath. Think that there'll be a Stan smitten as I was and let her live off of their money. But who knows, maybe she might. It doesn't really matter to me anymore. And I'm just relieved that she's gone now, and I won't have to deal with her in the foreseeable future. Thank goodness. I was wrong about getting rid of her so soon. I guess she realized that not everyone will be okay with her lifestyle and won't just blindly agree to let her live with them and spend their money. That is, unless she actually starts looking for a real sugar daddy, which is another story altogether. She somehow got a hold of me from a different number and started texting me to blackmail me into letting her move back in. Her strategy was definitely very off because she was trying to threaten me by saying that if I didn't let her move in until she found a new boyfriend, then she'd tell everyone that I'd used her for her contacts and the modeling world to help my rich cousin out. I hope she does realize that unless she tells people the full story, they're just going to think that I was being a good relative, and I hope she's not naive enough to believe that she can just talk crap about me to people, and I'll sit back and let it happen. I told her that if she talks about me, then I'll definitely talk about what she did, and it'll all be out in the open. She also has a significant following on Instagram, so this will affect her a lot more than it'll affect me. She hasn't replied yet, and I hope she doesn't because I'm getting really sick of her. As if bothering me through text wasn't bad enough, Bella showed up at my workplace today. The receptionist had to call me to meet her because apparently, she refused to leave without seeing me first. I had to take her to a nearby cafe so that I could talk to her without embarrassing myself in front of my coworkers because I could tell that Bella was very close to throwing a tempered tantrum. When I saw her, and that's exactly what happened once we sat down to talk in the cafe. She started whining about how I'd been unfair to her and that she deserved a second chance regardless of whatever she'd done just so that she could prove to me that she was capable of being a good girlfriend under the right circumstances. That really caught me off guard. So I asked her what she meant by that statement because as far as I was concerned, her circumstances couldn't have been better. She lived a completely stress-free life and paid for nothing, and apparently that's what she meant by circumstances. She told me that I'd spoiled her rotten by letting her walk all over me, and if I'd stood up to her more often, then she might have been more attracted to me. I was too weak-willed and too average-looking already, and on top of that, I had absolutely no self-esteem, which made it so easy for her to boss me around without feeling guilty, which is why she said what she said. But now that she knew that I'd been secretly playing her for a fool, she was a lot more attracted to me and could finally take me seriously as a potential boyfriend. I'm not even making this up right now. I actually thought I was going to laugh out loud right in her face when she was saying these things because it was just that ridiculous. I don't even know if this was some last-ditch attempt at getting me back or if she genuinely meant whatever she was saying, but it was hilarious. There's no doubt about that. The gaslighting and manipulation were so crazy that I ended up telling her that I'd think about what she said and talk to her later because I was trying really hard not to laugh. She made me promise her that I'd talk to her once I got back home. That's another reason I'm glad that we broke up, because she used to baby talk to me every time I was upset with her. I don't know why. I guess she thought infantilizing herself would make her seem more desirable to me or whatever, but it just grossed me out. I was just too nice to say anything to her. I got back home half an hour ago, and it's just insane to me that even after all that has happened, she's still trying to get back with me just so that she'll have a place to live. It's actually kind of pathetic that she's so lazy and so dependent on a man that she can't even be bothered to have some pride and leave me alone. I'm not going to get back in touch with her, and I'm going to make sure that the next time she tries to contact me, she knows that she's no longer welcome in my life. So it's just been a day since Bella showed up at my workplace, and today she called me from a friend's number again. I answered the call because I wanted to end things once and for all with her. When she asked me if I'd given any thought to what she'd said, I told her point blank that I hadn't, and even if I was held at gunpoint and asked to get back with her, I'd still say no. I kind of went on a rant and told her every awful thing that I'd thought about her and let her know that she was a pathetic mess, and I wasn't willing to deal with her anymore, so she should probably start looking for somebody else to leech off of. She argued with me, saying that the reason I had a crap load of money right now was because I'd used her and her contacts to suck up to my rich cousin, so I should be the last person to talk about leeching off people. Our argument kind of escalated after that point, and there was a lot of cursing and shouting, but after a while, I realized that there's just no point in arguing with a deranged idiot like her. I don't even know how I fell for her in the first place, but I guess she was pretty and charming enough to make it work. I just told her that I wasn't going to entertain her bull crap anymore, and if she tried to contact me again, then I'd post what she'd done on Instagram, and that would be the end of whatever little fame she'd earned for herself. So she realized that it was probably not a good idea to keep arguing with someone who could expose you and ruin your reputation within seconds if you wanted to, and she hung up after calling me a bunch of names and cuss words. But I don't even mind that anymore. It's a small price to pay to get rid of her for good. I'm just not going to date anyone for a while and go to therapy so that I can work out whatever esteem issues I have, because I most certainly do have some, or else I wouldn't have acted equally crazy. Now on to the next story. Story 3. I really don't like my mother-in-law. She's never been fond of me, and accepting me as her daughter-in-law has always been tough for her. But what she did recently crossed the line. That's why I couldn't think straight and eventually revealed her secrets. You might think I'm a sweet and caring person, like a harmless kitten, but my mom taught me to fight back when people are unreasonably mean. This time, my mother-in-law targeted me, thinking I wouldn't fight back. My husband is in the film industry, working as a technical staff, which requires him to travel worldwide for different shoots. One perk is that he often invites me and the family to join him and explore new places. Like many other trips, our planned visit to Fiji has been in the works for a while. All set, we made it to the airport on time, and I was relieved that we didn't encounter any traffic issues. We managed to pass through customs and board the plane after unloading our bags. I double-checked to ensure we hadn't forgotten anything. Once sure, I went inside along with my mother-in-law. She told me to drop off our luggage at the baggage counter. I separated my hand luggage with pre-check and bags and asked her to do the same. Then I told her to go ahead with the security check while I dropped off the luggage. When I came back, I went through the security check myself and proceeded to find my mother-in-law. I saw her from a distance, and she was looking around for something. I asked her what was up, and she told me that one of her handbags was missing. She said that it contained her diabetes medicine and she can't leave without it. I told her to calm down and remember if she had accidentally left it with the other luggage. She said she couldn't remember and asked me to go see if it was there. I went back and checked with the person near the baggage counter if any luggage was unmarked or went overweight, as one of our bags was missing, but she told me nothing like that was caught. I dejectedly made my way back to my mother-in-law. Before I could complete the security check again, airport security requested me to accompany them. When I inquired about the reason, they assured me that everything would be clarified soon. Upon reaching a private holding facility, they explained that a woman had reported overhearing me mention gun and drugs, expressing concerns that I might be a terrorist. They need to make sure that I'm not hiding anything. I was furious. When did I even make a call? I barely had time to check in before our flights. And who was the woman who reported these things? Then the thought that my mother-in-law is exactly the person to do something like this struck my mind. I told the officers to go ahead with their investigation, and I would fully cooperate with them. It took 15 hours for me to be fully clear, and once it was over, I showed the officer who had told me about the woman a picture of my mother-in-law and asked him if that was the person who reported me. When he said yes, a sudden wave of rage came over me. I told him that woman is my mother-in-law and then walked out of there. I was filled with anger and frustration towards my mother-in-law, and I couldn't tolerate it any longer. I had ignored her negative comments and toxic behavior in the past because I rarely interacted with her. However, this incident was the last straw. I decided it was time to stand up for myself and planned a revenge to make her regret every negative action she directed towards me. The first thing I did was make sure that her precious suburban neighborhood society knew exactly what kind of person she was. I was actually invited to a few of these parties when I occasionally visited here with my husband. I know they all like to play pretend and not do themselves when it comes to showing off. My mother-in-law did the same, passing up the cheap bakery treats she buys from a local seller and telling everyone how it's all from a famous chef. I blew out all of our secrets when I invited everyone over and told them exactly where the savory sweets came from. I also exposed the Chinese vase my mother-in-law has supposedly imported from China to be a mass-produced product on Etsy. When I was satisfied that her lies have been revealed and her reputation was ruined, I decided to land the final blow. As I was already at her house, I waited for my father-in-law to return home. When he arrived, he asked why I hadn't left for my flight back to Seattle that day. I revealed to him that there was something important he needed to know. I disclosed that I had recently discovered that my mother-in-law had an affair with one of the assistant directors during our trip to watch the shooting in Hawaii. I told him that my husband had told me about it, and he heard it from one of the set staff who was responsible for props and caught them doing it in the prop room. My husband wanted to keep this a secret because he didn't wish to be the person who brought troubles in their marriage, but I had no such obligations, and I would like to see my mother-in-law suffer after what she put me through at the airport. I left her house the next day after airing out all her dirty laundry. Her pretentious little life would be in shambles once she returns, and boy, I can't wait to see it. But still, I felt like I went a little overboard, and I might have hurt my husband in the process by revealing the truth about my mother-in-law cheating on her husband. I have some regrets about that part, so let me ask, am I being unreasonable here? After a week, yesterday, my mother-in-law was supposed to return home. During this week, I discovered that my mother-in-law told my husband that I skipped the Fiji trip because I was exhausted from traveling worldwide just to spend a few days with him, and I expressed that it's no longer worth the trouble. That line-dying woman actually fought as if that would create a misunderstanding between us. I had to show my husband for about 2 hours that I love our life and that I couldn't visit because I missed my plane, and it was all because of a misunderstanding. I didn't think it was right to explain everything to him over the phone, especially after how I had already revealed one of his secrets and told my father-in-law about his cheating wife. My mother-in-law should have reached home yesterday night, and now I'm just eagerly waiting for the call I'm sure to receive after she finds out the mess that was waiting for her. I'll update here once I get to see her reaction. Holy hell, I did not think that my mother-in-law would actually show up to my house. I was kind of glad she did because I got to see the rage on her face as she relived the mess that is her life right now. When I politely invited her in, the murderous look she gave me was all the satisfaction I needed from her. She came inside and started shouting immediately. She told me what an absolute jerk I am and how I had no right to do that to her. She warned me that karma would come back to hit me, and she insisted that I should feel ashamed for causing discord in the family. She hurled various insults my way, claiming I don't deserve her son, and she asserted that she had known all along that sooner or later I would reveal my true colors. She even came close to slapping me but managed to restrain herself. But I was angry again. All the buried emotions of ignoring her behavior came pouring out, and I told her she's lucky I only revealed her secrets because if I really wanted to harm her, I could have pressed charges of false accusations on her after the stunt she pulled on me at the airport. Then I kicked her out of my house. I actually thought that doing this to her would make me feel better, but I just feel worse. So it's been 2 months since my last update here, and a lot has happened since then. My mother-in-law was fighting a lot with my father-in-law because of the affair she had, and I told on her to my father-in-law. I initially thought it was a one-time occurrence, but it turns out she was still involved with that person, and she confessed it to my father-in-law. Upon learning this, he decided to kick her out of the house. Since then, she has been staying with her sister, feeling guilty for being the cause of their conflicts. I went and spoke to my father-in-law last week, and he told me that I had nothing to be sorry for. He said this wasn't the first time this had happened, but it sure as hell was the last time because they are separated now, and he had no intentions of getting back together with that woman. I don't know how to feel about this. They still hadn't told my husband about this and have asked me to keep it a secret until he returns home because my father-in-law wanted to be the one to tell him face to face about it. I know they had been lying to him for a while now and had told him that they had worked things out between them, but I feel like an unfaithful wife in the middle of all this. Finally, my husband came home last week and had met with my father-in-law 2 days ago. He found out about his parents. He was initially understanding about the separation, but when he discovered that I was the one who created this whole mess, he became quite upset. He questioned why I had done all this, and I explained the events at the airport and apologized to him, even before that, expressing my guilt for my actions. I never meant anything to escalate this much. Thankfully, my husband was understanding about the whole situation and said that sooner or later it was going to come out. We are not completely okay yet, but with time, I'm sure we'll be fine. Why to first of all, I agree that your mother-in-law was an a-hole and she needed to be taught some manners. Your actions were truly inconsiderate and hurtful. You not only caused pain to your father-in-law but also betrayed the trust of your husband by using information he confided in you. This behavior is unacceptable. It's perplexing why both the op and her mother-in-law resorted to childish behavior instead of resolving their issues through communication like adults. Both of them are a-holes who created this whole mess and completely deserve it. I, 19 female, have a cousin, 26 female, who got engaged about 6 months ago. During the wedding preparations, my cousin mentioned wanting to buy a diamond necklace to match her reception gown. My aunt asked me if I could let her borrow the diamond necklace I had obtained from my great-grandmother after her death. My family knows how much I care about my great-grandmother's necklace. It's the last thing I have from her. When someone asked to borrow it, I said no because it's delicate and means a lot to me. I offered another necklace, but they really wanted that specific one. I strictly forbade anyone from touching that necklace. I thought I had made it very clear that day. In the reception, I noticed the same necklace on my cousin. I was furious but chose not to say anything as it was her wedding, and I didn't want to ruin it. When I asked my mother, she said my father had tried to stop my cousin from asking for the necklace, but she kept pestering him till he finally gave up. I was angry but couldn't blame my dad because my cousin could be a pain in the ass. After the reception was done and the party had started, I silently took my necklace and left the place. Yesterday, after everyone had sobered up, I got a call from my crying cousin who accused me of stealing her jewels. Her husband took the phone and threatened to press charges. I calmly told him that the necklace rightfully belonged to me and she had borrowed it. He accused me of lying, insisting that I borrowed it from her. Her, my mother, who overheard the conversation, ended the call. Relatives criticized me, claiming I was wrong for taking the necklace and called me an a-hole for not sharing something that didn't belong to me in the first place. Yeah, I might have been an a-hole for not sharing, but was it wrong of me to take what was mine and leave? I genuinely don't understand what I did wrong. So I do want to confront my dad, but I don't know how to. I have never confronted him in my life. Like, should I ask him to give me the key to the safe or ask him not to give my things away like that or what? My dad has apologized, yet he is still not sure about letting me have my safe and my jewelry. Aren't called and asked not to press charges. Let's see how things end in 2. You're a lot nicer than I would have been. I'd have at the very least had some words with my father about it. Okay, sure, you could have told them you were taking them back. I don't get why everyone thinks the necklaces belong to your cousins. If you're sure it's the right one and yours is missing but got replaced back then, I don't see why it's a big deal. I know you're young, but I'd make sure to keep valuable things safe from now on. No one should be able to get to them anymore. Your father shouldn't have given it to her, let alone given it and not said anything. Buy a small safe and keep them yourself as soon as you can. It's too easy to see someone borrowing that and never giving it back. And to your 19, get your own safety and move everything into it. It's your property, and your father shouldn't have been the one to hand it off to your cousin. I'd also insist that your father call up both your cousin and her husband to inform them that any attempt to press charges is going to be met with a cease and desist order. Sounds like your cousin has been jelly about these things all along and used her wedding to snipe, but she felt she was more entitled to than you. She's older than you by 9 years, so she might have some feelings about it. Talk to your dad, get your stuff, and think about getting your own safe. It seems like he can't be trusted not to give or lend your things to people after you've already said no. My sister, who is 22, has been living with me. I'm 25, for 3 years now. Now I told her she can stay with me for as long as she wants, as long as she follows my rules, one of which is that she can't have men over. She can let people in, but they can't stay overnight. I've been very lenient, but she would have friends, male and female, over and let them stay overnight without my permission. I didn't say anything because I knew all her friends, and I didn't really think it's a big deal until last week. She brought a stranger to our home without my knowledge. I was home all right. She made sure I was fully asleep before she let the man in. She probably thought I wouldn't know, and she wouldn't get caught. But this morning, I woke up early and saw an extra pair of shoes that don't belong to me or my sisters, so I knew someone else was in our house. After the stranger left, I talked to my sister and told her it wasn't cool or respectful. I said if she does it again, I'm kicking her out. My mom thinks it's not a big deal and that I should just let it slide because she's young and enjoying her life. I don't want to be the boring sister, but they both knew how traumatized I was when someone tried to sneak into my home while I was home alone, which is why I'm very wary of welcoming strangers. She lives with me for free, and that's fine. After all, she's family, but if she disrespects me again, I'd have no qualms of kicking her out. Thank you all so much for your advice and for giving me a real talk. I guess I needed to hear it. She's my only sibling, so I kind of feel the need to provide for her, but I guess I should have given her some tough love. We've talked, and she's moving back to our mom. She has a job, but she got used to the idea of me paying for everything, which is partly my fault for enabling her. Learned my lesson. She'll always be family, but she needs to grow up. And to your house, your rules. Okay, your sister's grown up, can have friends over, etc., but it's polite to tell others at home if there will be guests. Bringing strangers home is usually not a good idea. She knew why you made that rule but still broke it. If your mom doesn't think it's a big deal, maybe your sister should go back to living with her and bring strangers over there. Let's see how long it takes for Mommy Dearest to get angry. Enter your sister is 22, not 12. I think you're being extremely generous in letting her live there for free, even while she continues to break some very basic common courtesy rules. You have a very valid reason for not wanting strangers in your home. If your mom and sister can't have empathy and compassion, that's on them. You should let your mom know that it's your house, your rules. Either your sister follows them, or she'll need to find a new place to live. You have no reason to feel guilty. Your mom and sister might be trying to manipulate you and your feelings, so don't let them. You don't deserve that. Since your mom thinks she's just young, so let her do what she wants, which is ridiculous. PTW, why doesn't mom take her in? Your sister is endangering you both. You two girls alone and bringing some strange guy in isn't a smart move. Why didn't she go to the guy's place? He might have no place of his own, or he lives with the woman already. If your sister doesn't take your rules seriously, it might be best for her to find her own place where she can have people over without any restrictions. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Found out about my husband's huge debts and lies to his rich family, saying I was the one in debt when his sister accused me of baby trapping him after I got pregnant. My F28 husband, Ron M34, is going through a huge issue, and I would like to know whether what I am about to do is the right thing. For context, I met my husband 4 years ago. I still remember the day I met him like it was yesterday. I would always go to the same coffee shop, and I guess he must have noticed me because one morning he came up to me and asked for my number. Ron is a really good-looking person, and he looked like he worked in finance, so I didn't hesitate much before giving him my number. He called me, we talked, and decided to go out for a date. Ron was very upfront with me about his family's wealth right from the beginning. He told me that his dad worked really hard to become one of the top real estate agents so he could give their family a very luxurious life. He asked me about my family, and I told him how I come from a lower-income family, but that I had worked hard to become an accountant. I had a good income and was self-sufficient, which was a dream come true for someone with my background. At first, everything seemed perfect between Ron and I. He would take me out to fancy dinners, shower me with expensive gifts, and talk endlessly about his family's wealth. He lived in a sprawling mansion, drove luxury cars, and wore designer clothes without a second thought. Coming from humble beginnings myself, I have to admit that I was mesmerized by his lifestyle and also felt a bit self-conscious. I would tell him that he was free to find someone more from his status, but despite our different backgrounds, Ron and I connected on a deeper level. I had a stable job that I was proud of, and he admired my determination and work ethic. When I met Ron's family for the first time, I couldn't help but notice the air of arrogance that surrounded them. Their mansion was like something out of a magazine, filled with expensive art and lavish decor. However, what struck me the most was how cold and distant they seemed towards me from our very first meeting. His mother refused to shake my hand and ignored me blatantly. It was as if she had immediately assumed I was only interested in Ron for their money, and she made this very clear through her demeanor and probing questions about my background. His parents wanted to know everything about my upbringing, education, and career, almost as if they were trying to gauge whether I was worthy of being with Ron. His older sister kept asking if I really just happened to meet Ron in that coffee shop, or if it was just an elaborate plan I had to run into him, no matter how many times Ron and I clarified that it was in fact he who had asked me out and I had no idea about who he was. She didn't believe us, telling me how everyone knows who they are. To be honest, I genuinely had not heard about them or seen them since I didn't grow up in such a wealthy neighborhood. Regardless of their insults and little jabs, I kept my mouth shut. At the end of the meeting, his dad did admit that I seemed like a hard-working woman, but he had always dreamed of watching his son get married to someone wealthier than him. This really offended me since I had never ever asked Ron to foot my lifestyle, and it was not my fault where I came from because at the end of the day, all the challenges I faced made me the strong, independent person I was, and I was not going to be ashamed about it. After this meeting, I told Ron that I was done meeting his parents and that he would be going to meet his family all on his own the next time because I did not want to go through so much scrutiny. He did try to protest, but I stayed firm in my decision and told him how humiliating it was. I also pointed out to him that my parents never treated him this way, so his parents had no right to be so cold and unwelcoming towards me. In the end, he agreed, and since then he has always gone to meet his family all on his own. However, despite what his family thought, our relationship continued to blossom, and soon we were talking about moving in together. I have to add that this was completely Ron's idea. You see, my lease renewal was coming up, and I was looking to find a bigger place to move into for me and my dog when Ron told me that it would be a better idea for us to move in with him. We had been dating for 10 months by this time, so I was a bit hesitant. However, he tried to reason with me and told me how he could see himself spending the rest of his life with me, and moving in was the next logical step in our relationship. I took a few days to think, but in the end I agreed. His house, which had been bought by his father, was really grand, but it always felt a bit too cold to me, like how you step into an interior design showroom where everything was carefully curated but lacked the warmth of a lived-in home. I turned this cold, lifeless house into a home. We had agreed on splitting bills, and I didn't mind since I liked paying for my own things, and I was anyway not having to pay any rent here. I think this is when I started noticing his life more closely now that we were living together. Up until then, I was always dazzled by his charms and the luxurious lifestyle he projected. One of the first things that struck me was the emptiness of his daily routine. Although he worked in finance, he seldom went to his office except for just one day of the week. He told me how his boss was his dad's friend, so he didn't have to go to the office every day, which I guess made sense. However, instead of working properly from 9 to 5 o'clock, he would easily get tired and irritated and go out shopping. I would be at the office when he would send me multiple pictures of him wearing different luxury brand shoes, asking me which one I liked the best. This would happen at least thrice a week, but it was his money, so I didn't say anything. Next, every time he would buy a shoe, he would click and post multiple pictures of what he bought and constantly check on his phone to see if his friends or followers replied to his story. Ron had become a bit of an influencer since he always posted luxury stuff, so I guess that's why he was always into his phone, chasing after validation and approval. His social media friends would sometimes invite him to parties, but he would never take me with him and give me excuses like how he is not allowed to bring a plus one and how he just wants to make new friends all on his own. Even then, I kept my mouth shut, even though it irked me a bit. Next, he bought a luxury sports car. I don't even know how someone can pay so much money for just a four-wheeler. While all of this was happening, I noticed that he had zero interest in paying any of his bills, even though we had agreed on splitting our bills. He would always end up telling me to pay everything, and this would include his phone and cable bills, which I didn't even use. If I ever brought up that subject, he would tell me how we are partners, and since he is letting me stay for free, I should help out more. Looking back, I don't think my issue was paying his bills, but it was the gut instinct I had that something about him just felt wrong. If he was wealthy enough to buy luxury shoes, clothes, and cars, then why does he need help in paying bills? Obviously, I was grateful that I could stay at his place rent-free, but I didn't mind paying rent and living on my own if that meant that I would only pay my bills. Unlike him, I had a fixed budget, and I wanted to save as much money as I could so I could one day start a family. I felt like he needed to do the same because if that was not our goal, then I didn't want to be with him. I decided to have a serious conversation where I told him all of this very frankly, and I gave him the option to break up with me if he and I were not on the same page. However, he assured me that he very much wanted to start a family with me and that I was a dependable woman. He told me that he was going to stop spending too much money. I thought everything would be fine after this. However, one day while cleaning his garage on a weekend when he was out golfing, I discovered that Ron had been living a facade in front of the whole world, including me. It turns out that most of what he flaunted was financed through debt and loans. His fancy car and his designer wardrobe were bought on credit. He had recent credit bills due to repay which he had absconded. I was shaken when I went through the bills, which he had apparently hidden inside a shoebox. This meant that he had knowingly kept this hidden from me. I was furious. I waited for him to get back from golfing with his friends. When he did come back, he saw me sitting with all of his bills right in front of the table, and he freaked out. He started yelling at me about why I went through the bills, and I told him how I knew everything and he could not hide from me anymore. Ron tried to backtrack, telling me how these were just a few bills and he was working on repaying them. I asked him why he had not just repaid them already since he was bringing in income every month from his job. This is when Ron confessed to me that he had been out of a job for the last 4 months. I was shocked by this revelation since he had been going into the office once a week as usual for the last 4 months, and the rest of the days we would text while I was at the office and he was supposedly working from home. I asked him how this happened and why he never told me about it. Ron opened up about how his boss was an a-hole and had gone back on his words and had been pushing for Ron to go to the office every day since the company was taking on more clients and Ron needed to have more face-to-face meetings. However, Ron felt it was disrespectful, and he and the boss had a disagreement which resulted in his boss sacking him. Ron went on to tell me how it was not a big deal and that he would get a job in a jiffy when he would start to apply. My eyes widened in shock as I asked him what the hell he had been doing for the past 4 months if he had yet to apply for a job. Ron replied that he was taking a break for his mental health and that I should not blame him for any of this. I told him that even if he had lost his job, it didn't make sense as to why he was not able to pay bills since he did apparently come from a wealthy family. Ron told me how he did ask his parents for help, but they had refused to help him. He went off about how his parents clearly favored his older sister, Mo, and how unfair this was. I felt like my entire relationship with him had been a lie. The illusion he had portrayed of himself was starting to come down. Clearly, he was not wealthy, and that is why he depended on me to pay his bills, while his unemployed ass could continue to buy luxury items and post about them on social media. I told him very firmly that I loved him, but that this was not something I signed up for. I told him that I knew exactly how it felt to be broke, and I had worked really hard to come out of it, so I was not going to let anyone drag me down to that place ever again. I informed him that if he didn't agree to change his ways right that second and show me through actions, I would be out of his house with my things that very evening. I guess seeing me this pissed really went through to Ron. He immediately apologized to me and sat down to discuss ways to deal with his bills. I told him that he needed to sell his car, pay back all his credit card bills, and stop buying any luxurious items for a while. Ron tried to refuse, telling me how people were going to judge him and how his friends were going to make fun of him. I told him that I honestly didn't care about any of that because he had mounting debts that needed to be resolved first. He tried to ask me if I could help him pay off some of the loan, but I refused and let him know that this was his responsibility, and I would be paying off our monthly bills and taking care of any daily expenses. I let him know that until he took proactive measures to lessen his debt, I would not feel comfortable discussing a future with him. Begrudgingly, he agreed. Over the following months, Ron took proactive steps to address his debts. We put his car up for sale, and since it was a sports car, we got lucky because we got enough from the sale to pay back his loan and keep a little extra to pay back his other bills. Next, he cut back on unnecessary expenses and focused on repaying his credit card bills. As you can imagine, it was a challenging time for him since he is not used to cutting back on anything. There were moments of frustration and doubt, but I would encourage him to work hard to regain control of his finances. Eventually, Ron managed to clear a significant portion of his debt, and I felt proud of the fact that he was trying. We did discuss him getting a job, But this is when Ron opened up to me about his plan to start his own business. He told me that he had an entrepreneurial spirit and wanted to explore that. I was vehemently against this as I am far more risk-averse than Ron. I knew he could be very fickle-minded at times, and I didn't know for sure if he had the determination to concentrate on building his business. However, he had worked hard to pay off his debt, so I admittedly didn't fight much during this time. Ron proposed to me, which took me by surprise. He told me how he had listened to all my demands and had paid off his debt, so now we could concentrate on starting a family together. I told him yes because at the end of the day, I did love him, and all I wanted was for him to keep working hard just like I did so we could both build a life together. He did inform me that his parents were unaware that he would be proposing, so he was a bit nervous to tell them. When he called to inform his parents, they told him that even though they were happy for him and would support him, they really did not expect that he would end up with someone like me. On the other hand, my parents were happy for me. We had a small wedding because I did not want to spend too much money and mess up our credits after Ron had just come out of debt. My parents graciously stepped in to help with the expenses for our wedding, and I took out money from my savings also to pay for our wedding. Ron's contributions, on the other hand, were minimal despite his family's supposed wealth. When our guests marveled at the elegance of the event, some even assumed that Ron and his family had probably footed the bill. Throughout all this, Ron remained silent, never correcting their assumptions or acknowledging the truth, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of disappointment. It was disheartening to see him bask in the false praise, especially knowing that he had been unemployed for months and hadn't contributed financially as much as one would expect. His parents also shamelessly never corrected anyone, and maybe it was because they felt guilty after that, but they decided to foot our honeymoon. This was unexpected of them, but we accepted since otherwise we may not have even gone for a honeymoon after our wedding. In our honeymoon, Ron worked on starting his own social media agency, just like he had decided, where he would be working with brands and hiring influencers. This is no doubt a very lucrative business, but there are hundreds of agencies like this, and it's difficult to stand out. I would constantly come home to him grumbling about how he either could not rope in an influencer for an event or that he had lost an influencer who was not up for negotiation. Also, brands seldom work with new agencies, so it was really difficult for him to find brands to trust him enough to sign up with him. As a result, the business never earned any income, and I would sometimes beg him to go back to finding a proper 9-to-5 job, even though it wasn't as exciting. Ron would get pissed and tell me how he needed time and that he was going to make it. However, no matter how many events he attended or the influencers he met, his business was not successful and was definitely not dependable. Meanwhile, I was getting frustrated with being the sole breadwinner and working every second of the day that I was awake. I would come home to work more. The dishes were never cleaned, the laundry would be piling up, and the dog would need to be taken for a walk. On top of this, he would wait for me to cook for him while he would tell me about all the bills that needed to be paid. If I ever brought up anything about my work, he would tell me how he was glad he left his job since he can't be as stressed about work as me. This would really irk me the wrong way because I was the one paying for everything with my stressful job while he was off partying every day at various events. I slowly started to resent him more and more. We would do nothing except watch TV together, and it was starting to feel suffocating. On weekends, I sleep a lot because I am constantly burned out from working the entire week. If I ever told him to help me out with chores around the house, he would tell me how starting a business needed his 100% energy, and as his partner, I should be more understanding. Last month, on top of all this stress, I found out that I was pregnant. Now, I have always imagined being pregnant and having a baby, but I don't know why, but I felt like this is not how I would like to start a family. I mean, when you are bringing a child into this world, you want them to have a stable home and 2 providing parents. However, in our case, I was the only one providing, and he was doing nothing to contribute to the household. If I did bring in a child, then I would just have to do even more work on top of everything I was doing currently. I decided to talk to him about my thoughts. Unlike me, Ron was ecstatic and hugged me in happiness. He told me how wonderful this news was and that he could not wait to become a father. When I brought up how exhausted I felt around the house and how having a baby would only increase my work, he told me that he agreed and that he would start taking up responsibilities around the house. I was surprised by his enthusiasm, and I was glad that he was going to step up. In the past weeks, Ron has stepped up. I mean, I still do 80% of the work around the house, like cooking, cleaning, and laundry, but he cleans the dishes, takes out the trash, and takes the dog out for a walk. I thought with time we could get better and better over time. This past weekend, he told me that he would be going to meet his family, so I informed him that I would tag along since we wanted to make the pregnancy announcement together. I know I did not exactly picture his parents to be thrilled with our pregnancy, but when I announced the pregnancy, their faces literally fell. His mother and sister scoffed at me and gave me the dirtiest looks, while his dad looked down as if I had made a grave mistake. His mother looked me straight in the eye and told me how this was just ridiculous and that there was no need to bring a child into our marriage with the problems we were facing. I asked her what she meant, but she ignored me and excused herself from the table. Ron and I decided to leave because clearly the mood was spoiled, and I had no idea why. On our way back, I asked him what his mother was talking about, but he shook his head, saying he had no idea, and went on to say how it would be a good idea for him to continue meeting his family alone from now on since they were clearly upsetting me. I felt really angry and disappointed with him because I had done absolutely nothing wrong to make his family treat me this way, and with a baby coming, I had thought that for once we could all let go of the past for the sake of the child. Yesterday, while I was at work, I received a call from my SIL. She had never called me before unless it was something really important, so I immediately picked up, thinking maybe something happened to my husband or their parents. In our conversation, SIL told me how she had talked with Ron, who felt they were all really disrespectful towards me, but she wanted to tell me finally exactly why they all felt this way. This is when she went on to tell me that she knew how we were struggling because of all the debts I had, and they didn't appreciate all the work Ron was putting in for me when I was doing nothing to contribute financially. I took a beat to digest the information and then asked her to tell me exactly what she meant because I was confused by what she was implying. SIL then goes on to say that Ron had told them that I had massive debts, and he was the one who had to pay for everything by selling off his car, and he even sacrificed by not buying luxury brands. My head was spinning as she then went on to tell me how she could not let her brother suffer more, and that I should not baby trap him. I can't even begin to express how pissed off I felt at that moment. This man-child had gone and lied to his family about me being in debt just to save his own face. He clearly didn't want people to think he was broke, so he had made up this messed up story where he could blame me. Here I was, working hard day and night at a job that I disliked just so that I could pay our bills while he could continue to make up stories. I was so angry that I didn't even want to explain anything to his sister, so I simply told her that she was right and that I should not baby trap him since he was not worthy enough to be a father anyway. I then cut the call and informed my boss that I was not feeling well, so I could go back home. I knew my husband was out meeting an influencer, so I quickly gathered my things so I could move out with my dog. I didn't even bother leaving a note and just drove away with everything I owned in my car. Since yesterday, I've been living at my parents' place while Ron has been frantically calling me. He must have talked with his sister because he had sent me messages saying how he could explain everything and how he just needed me to come back home. My parents have no idea yet what is going on, but they know this is a serious issue, so they haven't asked me a lot of questions. I am honestly at a fix. On one hand, I am pregnant and I want my child to have a father, but on the other hand, I don't want to be with someone who has been lying about me when I have provided him with so much. I'm contemplating divorcing my husband after what my SIL revealed to me. Update 1. I talked with my parents about everything, and they agree, like everyone else on Reddit, that I need to leave my husband. What he has done is truly unforgivable. He went to such lengths to lie about me over the years, even though I had been nothing but a good and loyal partner to him. The audacity he had to lie and say it was my debt goes on to show that I can't trust him. I am planning on talking to him and letting him know my decision to divorce him. Update 2. It's been a week since my last update. I talked with my husband 2 days ago. He had been calling and texting me for days. He got in touch with my parents, who informed him that I was staying with them. However, they did not clarify anything else. He came over to my parents' place yesterday so we could sleep together. He was clearly shaken up and straight up started to apologize. I asked him if he even knew what he was apologizing for, and he nodded, telling me how after I had left, he had called everyone, and his sister had informed him that she had a conversation with me, so then he had pieced it together. I asked him why he would make such atrocious lies about me and how insulted I felt when his sister called to tell me that I was baby trapping him. He nodded remorsefully and went on to tell me how he has always felt insecure around his family members. He told me that all his parents cared about was their wealth and status, so he was too embarrassed to tell anyone the truth. He went on to tell me how when his family inquired about where his car was, it was just easier for him to blame me and tell them a story about how I was in debt and he was helping me out rather than owning up to his mistakes. He told me that he never thought it would be a big deal since I wasn't close to his family anyway. I shook my head in disappointment and let him know that I had no idea that he could be this disgusting and manipulative. I reminded him how much I had worked all these years to provide for us. Yet here he was admitting shamelessly how easily he had betrayed me. I informed him that I was getting divorced. Hearing this, he started to plead with me to not do this, telling me how we should think about the baby. But I informed him that we didn't have to be married to be co-parents to our child. I pointed out to him that the child would be much happier growing up in a stable environment free from this tension and discord in our relationship. Despite his pleas, I remained resolute in my decision to end the marriage. Clearly, we had reached a point where staying together was no longer healthy for either of us. The thought of subjecting my child to a tumultuous household filled with arguments and resentment is not something I'm willing to entertain. He pleaded a bit more, but in the end, he had to leave when he saw that I wasn't going to change my mind. He did try to apologize to my parents before leaving, but they looked at him with disappointment and did not respond to his apology. Update 3. A lot of you have suggested I reach out to his family and clarify everything. I don't want to see them. However, I do think it is right for me to tell them the truth once and for all. Hence, I sat down and wrote a long email to his parents and sister yesterday, detailing every expenditure I've ever paid for Ron along with screenshots of payments from my bank account. I wrote about how he was the one with debt and had bills piling up while he kept buying one luxury item after the other. I let them know that I wanted nothing from them, and Ron was free to walk away from my child if that is what he wished. However, he would be liable to pay child support every month. I let them know my decision to divorce Ron and told them how they could finally have their wish and marry him off to a much wealthier woman. Since my email, Ron has texted me furiously since he is now being bombarded by his parents and sister who are furious at him for lying about me. They have even called me, but I haven't bothered picking up their calls. His sister has sent me a text apologizing for what she said and is pleading with me to not leave the family. Honestly, I do not care about their apologies or their opinions at this point. I have already made my decision to move forward with the divorce, so I will be meeting a divorce lawyer next week. As for my pregnancy, I am determined to provide a stable and loving environment for my baby, even if it means co-parenting with Ron separately. I have the support of my family, and I am confident that I can handle the challenges ahead as a single parent. Thank you to everyone who has offered advice and support during this difficult time. This will be my last update since I want to concentrate on myself and my baby. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Wife of 6 years needs a kidney. I got tested and she is my sister. I decided to get tested to see if I could donate my kidney to my wife of 6 years. We have 2 kids together, for F2M. My wife got sick just after our son was born and now is in need of a kidney transplant. We checked with her relatives and none were a match or a viable donor. Last week I got tested. I knew it would be a long shot, so I decided to get tested to see if I could donate. I got a call the other day saying that I was a match. The doctor then said something about wanting to do additional testing due to some information from the HLA tissue test results. I didn't think much of it and agreed. Then the results came and I was shocked and confused. He explained that because of how DNA information is passed down through generations, a parent to a child could have at least a 50% match, siblings could have a 0 to 100% match. It was rare to have a high match as husband and wife. I asked what that means. He said that my wife and I have an abnormally high match percentage. Long story short, we're related. No, I'm not kidding. I was put up for adoption before I was born, placed into a family that moved across the country. I knew I was adopted, but we didn't have any information about my bio family. It was a closed adoption. I met my wife by chance 8 years ago. I was on a trip from work and she was working at the site I went to. We worked together for a week, we exchanged numbers, kept in touch. I was sent back there 3 more times that year and each time we became closer. I was given the opportunity to be transferred out there in a new, higher paying position in a different department as hers. The rest is history. I don't know what to do moving forward, but I know it may be wrong. She is my wife and the mother of our kids. This post is probably going to get removed, but it is all true. Edit. Look at name. All of my family is from my adopted parents. My parents adopted me 2 minutes after I was born. Their name is on my birth certificate. They have not told me anything about my bio parents and don't have any info. Her family is not a match as stated above. Most of her family has low match potential or can't donate due to medical or other reasons. I am 2 years older than my wife. I do know that my wife was born when her parents were late teens. Update 2 weeks later. This is an update. The original was posted about 2 weeks ago. Yes, I know I misspelled across. Yes, I do have bad grammar and spelling. Yes, I am stressed and freaking out. Yes, I can play the banjo. No, there was no genetic test when we got married. Our state stopped that in the 1990s. No, my wife has never been stuck in the dryer, but she once got stuck under the bed. Joke. The reason I did not go into too much detail is to try to not be so specific that I or my wife might be recognized. Well, the front page of Reddit didn't help with that. Thank you all for your comments and feedback. I didn't respond to them, but I did read all of them. The reason her family couldn't donate was that close relatives had some medical issues that prevent them from donating. Examples: high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, heavy drinkers, and more. The further out we tested, the less % of a match. I wanted to be tested because we needed to find someone. The doctor said it would be unlikely, but wouldn't hurt to try. I was freaking out after I got the news and had to get outside advice. When the doc said that the percentage was abnormally high and that we might be related, I kind of zoned out and started to piece things together in my mind. My parents live 1,000 miles away. They met my in-laws a few times, once at my wedding and when both my children were born. My children are fine. My daughter is incredibly smart for her age. My son is a handful unhealthy. The way my adoption worked was when my bio mom gave birth to me, I was checked out and put in a different room. I was there, but don't know how it officially worked. From what my parents explained, they were in that room waiting. They never met my bio mom in person. My bio mom only had a profile and picked them out of many candidates. I called my parents and told them that I needed to know everything they knew about my bio mom. They told me that they had limited knowledge. They said she was a single mom that was 16 years old. The father was not in the picture. Also, I was born in a hospital 1 hour from where my wife was born. Like I said, limited knowledge. Growing up, I didn't want to find out about my bio parents. To me, my parents were always my parents. I knew I was adopted and that it was a closed adoption. I figured it wouldn't matter long term. I'm not going to do an additional at-home DNA test through any of the traditional testing sites like 23andMe or Ancestry due to personal reasons, like the possibility of the family finding out. The doc said all of this to only me, not with my wife present. Some of the additional tests were done through the doctor, which was the CM test. I'm not an expert on DNA testing. They said it was like a 1900 plus CM match. This basically confirms one of my bio parents as one of hers. It can also mean first cousins or aunt/uncle. I'm guessing her dad. When my kids were born, my parents brought photos of me as a baby and commented that I and my son looked a lot like my wife's dad. My son was easily explainable, but all three of us are a different story. I'm not going to bring this up ever. I might look at my Phil differently, but nothing will hopefully change. I hope none of the family goes on Reddit and connects the dots. I am donating my kidney to my wife. We have started the full process that takes time and a lot of preparation. I plan on talking to my wife after the surgery and after recovery. We will decide what to do with our kids, if we are going to get them tested or ever tell them. I will not be leaving my wife. I love and will always be there for her. I made vows and I will keep them. I love her more than I would a half-sister. Edit to add. I do plan on telling her after the surgery. She is not doing well and I think this will be even harder on her. I would rather her know that I love her as a husband rather than flip her world upside down right before life-changing and dangerous surgery. If something were to happen, telling our kids is not a decision I'm going to make on my own. It will be a joint thing after my wife knows. New update part 1. My wife is probably my half-sister. Part 1 again. English is my first language. I'm just bad at it. People still think this is fake and that is okay. It is my life, not yours. In the long term, it only affects my life, not yours. Okay, first, my wife and I did go through with a transplant. We both are recovering, have recovered well. Now my wife is the healthiest she has been since just after our son was born. My profile has all the other posts, but since I posted this on my profile, you most likely are up to date. I have tried to write this update about a gazillion times. Hopefully I can finish this one and not miss anything and try to give details in order. This will probably be my only update. Thanks to the people who reached out and shared your personal experiences and advice with the transplant. It helped, so I kept to my original plan. I did not tell my wife about the possibility of us being related until after the surgery. Before the surgery, my parents came into town as soon as they could. It really helps having a big family support system like we have. The days leading up to the surgery seemed like there just wasn't enough time in the day for everything, with 900 doctor appointments, getting things prepared for worst-case scenarios, researching, setting up my parents and other family in our house to watch our kids, and just spending time together as a family. The doctors were fantastic and laid everything out in a professional but relatable fashion. They answered all the questions and concerns we had leading up to, during, and post-op. There were a ton of questions. It was one of the best feelings seeing my wife hopeful for the first time in a long time. I knew I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I took that away from her. In the days leading up, I decided I was going to write a letter to my wife if things went bad for me. But she survived. I wrote her 6 pages. I have small handwriting in it. I told her how much I loved her, how much she changed me from the moment we met, how she was my universe, but also how sorry I was for keeping a secret from her and lying to her. Went into details of what I found out over the last week, how we might be related and all the evidence. I gave it to my parents to give to her if something were to happen to me, but if we both didn't make it, then to read it with my in-laws. I also made other letters. The surgery went well for both of us. They said my organs look mighty fine. The transplant worked out rather quickly for my wife and her body accepted it. I ended up scratching my eye pretty bad and they put an eye patch on me. So when I saw my wife for the first time, her first words to me were, "The doctors knew we were here for the kidney, right? Recovery overall sucks." There was virtually no position that was comfortable. Shout out to the persons who recommended sleeping in a recliner, using stuffed animals my kids picked out as comfortable pillows, and more. I felt like a baby because my wife never complained and was healing well and taking it easy. Me, on the other hand, am not so smart and decided I should go against doctor's orders and did not take it easy and ended up having to go to the ER and have a secondary surgery to repair damages I caused. Please listen to your medical professionals. New update part 2. My wife is probably my half-sister. Part 2. Now on to what you'll really care about. During recovery, my wife got into TikTok. Well, after a time, she found a little post that made it way bigger than I ever intended. Looking back, I should have been more careful. Thanks for all the interaction and thanks to the ladies at Too Hot Takes. My wife loves you guys. During this time, she started to ask more in-depth questions about my adoption. My parents were still at the house at this point. Parents answered all questions. My wife used the excuse of wanting to put a memory book together for our kids and wanted to include a family history of us growing up and including our parents who raised us. She knew most of this info but wanted more details. She asked her dad about more details of his childhood, how he met my mill, if my mill was his first relationship. She knew some, but I was learning a lot. Also reminder my wife was born when her parents were older teens, him older than her. He said no, Mill was not his first relationship. We ended up pulling out his old yearbooks of his from high school and he showed us the girl who was his first real relationship. I knew she was probably my bio mom. I could see features that I have in her. He told us fond memories he had of her. He said their relationship ended because of her parents and he never saw her again. He tried finding out what happened to her, but couldn't before the internet. Shortly after that, he asked out my mill and here we are. We got my Phil side. Then my mill said, "Now let me tell you how it really happened." Proceeded to tell us a different story that was more believable. Nothing about all of this was a red flag indicating that my wife knew my secret, but after that visit, I felt extremely guilty. She was healthier than she had been in years, out of the major danger zone, so I had no real excuse not to tell her anymore. Took me 2 additional weeks to finally tell her. She noticed I was acting off and finally asked me if I was okay. I said I needed to talk to her about something serious, possibly life-altering and potentially a relationship-ending topic, but that I love her and will do absolutely everything she decided from that point forward. She told me that was not a good start to a conversation and asked if I wanted to try again. So I gave her the letter I had written before the surgery. She went from curious, happy, crying, intense concentration to readable in my head. I basically handed her divorce papers and I would never see her or my kids again. Our life that we have built just got nuked. I'm dramatic in my head. When I get nervous, I pace back and forth. When she finished reading it, she took a moment, then came over to me, stopped me from pacing, said to look at her, smiled with a genuine smile and said, "You are the dumbest smart person I know," then kissed me. This started a long conversation. She came across my first post after the surgery and found it oddly specific to our situation, even though I changed some facts and circumstances. She connected the dots. This started her trying to find out if it was true, if I would eventually tell her or continue to lie, hide it from her. She reassured me that it changed nothing in our relationship. She is my wife, I am her husband. She will always have a piece of me with her at all times. She said, like a bunch of comments, that she doesn't view it as wrong because we did not grow up together, we didn't know, and it is a bit too late to back out now. We decided to have our kids do genetic testing when they are more age appropriate, mainly for the unknown for me being adopted. We are not, for now / possibly ever, telling anyone. We also looked up who we now suspect is my bio mom. What we found was that she ended up passing a few years ago due to a drunk driver. Don't drink and drive. But I possibly have 2 other half-sisters, so I have dating options down the road if needed. Wife hit me when I told her this. Kids are doing really well. All they know is that mommy is doing better and enjoying spending more time with her and the extra energy, playfulness that she hasn't had in a while. They are doing really well, so all in all, the best case scenario happened. The only things I would change is if the doctors tell you to take it easy and give you proper medical advice. Follow it. Also, if you are keeping a secret from your wife / so don't. They probably know already and are just letting you keep digging the hole deeper. My wife and I are doing really well. We are probably the closest we have been in a long time. I asked her to marry me again. She said she would think about it, paused for like 5 long seconds, and of course, "Yes, I will marry you." I'm not as afraid as I was about family finding or seeing this post. I now have a goddess-like force to have my back if we ever get questioned. We have made contingency plans. Like I said, I probably won't update again. Now on to the next story. Story 6. My mill wants me to give my 3-year-old daughter to my sister-in-law and her husband, or else she would take me to court for being an irresponsible parent, which I am not. I, 35 am a single dad to my 3-year-old daughter, Lily. My wife, Sarah, passed away 2 years ago from cancer. It was a devastating loss for both me and Lily, but we've been doing our best to move forward and create a happy life together. Recently, my mother-in-law, Karen, 58F, approached me with a shocking request. She wanted me to give custody of Lily to Sarah's younger sister, Emily, 30F, and her husband, John, 32M. Karen's reasoning was that Lily needed a proper family with a mother figure and that Emily and John were better suited to raise her. I was completely blindsided by this request. Lily is my daughter, and I've been doing everything in my power to give her a loving and stable home since Sarah's passing. I've rearranged my work schedule to be more present, hired a part-time nanny to help when at work, and made sure Lily has plenty of playdates and activities to keep her engaged and happy. When I declined Karen's request, explaining that I had no intention of giving up custody of my own child, she became furious. She accused me of being selfish and not thinking about what was best for Lily. I tried to remain calm and reiterate that I was perfectly capable of raising my daughter, but Karen wouldn't listen. The situation escalated when Karen threatened to take me to court. She claimed she had evidence that I was an unfit parent and that she would use it to gain custody of Lily for Emily and John. I was shocked and hurt by her threats, especially since I've always tried to maintain a good relationship with Sarah's family for Lily's sake. I asked Karen what kind of evidence she supposedly had, but she refused to elaborate. She just kept insisting that Lily would be better off with Emily and John, and that I was depriving her of a chance at a normal family life. I stood my ground and told Karen that I would fight any attempts to take Lily away from me. I reminded her that I am Lily's legal guardian and that there was no basis for her claims. I also pointed out that uprooting Lily from her home and separating her from her father would be incredibly traumatic for her. Karen stormed out of my house, threatening that I would be hearing from her lawyer soon. I was left feeling angry, hurt, and worried about what might happen next. Since then, I've been documenting all of my interactions with Karen and keeping detailed records of Lily's care. I've also reached out to a family lawyer to discuss my options and prepare for any potential legal battle. I'm confident that I'm doing the right thing by keeping Lily with me, but Karen's accusations and threats have left me feeling shaken. I can't help but wonder if I'm being selfish by not considering her proposal more seriously. Emily has been struggling with fertility issues due to hormonal complications. She and John have been trying to have a child for several years without success. I sympathize with their situation, but I don't believe this justifies taking Lily away from me. Over the next few days, I tried to maintain our normal routine for Lily's sake. I took her to the park, read her bedtime stories, and did my best to shield her from the tension with her grandmother. However, I couldn't help but feel a constant sense of anxiety, wondering when the other shoe would drop. A week after Karen's initial visit, I received a formal letter from a lawyer representing her. The letter outlined a series of allegations against me, claiming neglect and emotional abuse. I was accused of working too much and leaving Lily with strangers, referring to her nanny who has been with us for over a year and whom Lily adores. The letter also suggested that I was emotionally unstable due to my grief over Sarah's death and unable to provide a nurturing environment for Lily. Reading these accusations felt like a punch to the gut. I've dedicated every part of my life to ensuring Lily's happiness and well-being since Sarah passed away. To have my efforts twisted and used against me was infuriating and heartbreaking. I immediately contacted my lawyer and forwarded the letter to her. She assured me that the claims were baseless and that we had a strong case to maintain custody. She advised me to gather character references from Lily's pediatrician, her preschool teachers, and other family members who could attest to my parenting abilities. As I began reaching out to people for these references, I was overwhelmed by the support I received. Lily's teachers praised her development and social skills, noting how well-adjusted she seemed despite the loss of her mother. Our pediatrician wrote a glowing letter about Lily's health and my attentiveness as a parent. Even some of Sarah's cousins and aunts reached out to offer their support, saying they disagreed with Karen's actions. Despite this flood of support, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Karen had been a part of our lives since Lily was born. She had helped us during Sarah's illness and in the aftermath of her death. I had always thought we had a good relationship, even if it was sometimes strained by our shared grief. Now, it felt like she was trying to tear apart what remained of our family. I tried to understand Karen's perspective. Maybe she genuinely believed Lily would be better off with Emily and John. Perhaps she was struggling with her own grief and wanted to keep a piece of Sarah close by having Lily raised by her other daughter. But no matter how I looked at it, I couldn't justify her actions or the hurtful accusations she was making against me. Update. Yesterday, Emily and John showed up at my doorstep unannounced. I was surprised to see them, especially after Emily's earlier call where she had apologized for her mother's behavior. Lily was napping, so I invited them in for a quiet talk. Emily started the conversation by saying that they believed it might be best for Lily to live with them. John nodded along, looking uncomfortable but supportive of his wife. I listened patiently, trying to remain calm. When Emily finished, I politely but firmly restated my position. I told them that while I appreciated their concern, Lily was my daughter and I had no intention of giving up custody. I emphasized that Lily was happy, well-adjusted, and that uprooting her would be traumatic. Emily's behavior suddenly changed. Her face hardened, and she accused me of being selfish. She said I was ruining Lily's life by depriving her of a mother's care. I was shocked. Then Emily made an accusation that surprised me. She claimed that I was planning to marry another woman and make her Lily's stepmother. This was completely false. I hadn't even considered dating since Sarah's passing, let alone remarriage. When I denied this, Emily became even more agitated. In a moment that felt surreal, Emily then accused me of never having truly loved Sarah and not loving Lily either. She said that if I really cared about Lily's well-being, I would let her be raised by a real family. I was stunned into silence by the brutality of her words as I struggled to respond. John tried to calm Emily down, but she brushed him off. She stood up abruptly and declared that they would be back with their lawyer. Emily stated that they would fight for custody and that I should prepare myself to lose Lily. They left quickly after that, leaving me reeling from the encounter. I sat in silence for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. After collecting myself, I called my lawyer to update her on this new development. She advised me to document the visit and Emily's threats, assuring me again that they had no legal grounds to take Lily away from me. That night, as I tucked Lily into bed, I held her a little tighter than usual. I promised her and myself that I would do everything in my power to protect our little family. The road ahead might be difficult, but I was prepared to face whatever challenges came our way. Now, I'm left wondering how things escalated to this point. How did a family that once supported each other become so fractured? And most importantly, how can I shield Lily from this brewing storm while still maintaining her relationships with her extended family? Update: 2 days after Emily and John's visit, I received a call from Sarah's grandmother, Elizabeth. She's always been a voice of reason in the family, and I was relieved to hear from her. However, what she told me left me shocked and furious. Elizabeth informed me that she had overheard a conversation between Karen and Emily. It turned out that their sudden interest in gaining custody of Lily wasn't just about family or providing a mother figure. There was a significant financial motivation behind it. Sarah had inherited a substantial sum of money from her late grandfather. Sarah and I had decided to put all of that money into a trust fund for Lily's future. The money was legally Lily's, to be accessed when she turned 25. Elizabeth explained that Karen and Emily believed that if they gained custody of Lily, they would also gain control over this inheritance. They saw it as a way to solve Emily's financial struggles and fund expensive fertility treatments. I was furious. The idea that they would use Lily as a pawn in their scheme to get their hands on money that rightfully belonged to her was beyond comprehension. It explained their sudden change in behavior and the lengths they were willing to go to in order to get custody. Immediately after ending the call with Elizabeth, I contacted my lawyer. I explained the situation and asked for advice on how to protect Lily and her inheritance. My lawyer advised me to take the following steps. 1. Document Elizabeth's statement. She suggested I ask Elizabeth to provide a written statement about what she had overheard. 2. Review the trust documents. We needed to ensure that the trust was ironclad and couldn't be accessed or altered if custody changed. 3. Inform the trustee. My lawyer recommended notifying the trustee of the potential custody dispute to prevent any unauthorized changes. 4. Consider a restraining order. Given the escalating situation, she suggested I might need to file for a restraining order against Karen and Emily to protect Lily. 5. Prepare for court. While we hoped it wouldn't come to this, my lawyer started preparing arguments to present in court if necessary, focusing on Lily's best interests and the apparent financial motivations behind the custody attempt. I spent the next few days gathering all the necessary documentation and following my lawyer's advice. The betrayal I felt was immense. To think that Sarah's own mother and sister would try to use Lily for financial gain was heartbreaking. Despite my anger, I tried to remain calm for Lily's sake. She had picked up on the tension and had been more clingy than usual. I made sure to spend extra time with her, reassuring her of my love and commitment. As I tucked Lily into bed that night, I found myself reflecting on Sarah. I wished she was here to help navigate this mess, but I knew she would be proud of how I was protecting our daughter. I made a silent promise to her and to Lily that I would fight with everything I had to keep our little girl safe and secure. Now, as I prepare for what might be a long and ugly legal battle, I can't help but wonder, how did money manage to tear this family apart so completely? And how can I protect Lily, not just now, but in the future from those who might try to take advantage of her? Update. A week after my conversation with Elizabeth and my lawyer, I received a message from Karen. She wanted to meet and discuss things civilly, without involving the courts. I agreed, thinking it might be an opportunity to put an end to this nightmare. We met at a neutral location, a quiet cafe in town. Karen and Emily were already there when I arrived. They both looked tense but tried to put on friendly faces. Karen started by saying they had reconsidered their approach and wanted to find a solution that worked for everyone. Emily chimed in, suggesting we could arrange more frequent visits and perhaps even some overnight stays for Lily at their house. I listened quietly, letting them lay out their proposal. When they finished, I took a deep breath and decided it was time to lay all the cards on the table. I know about the inheritance, I said calmly. The effect was immediate. Karen's face paled, and Emily's eyes widened in shock. They exchanged panicked glances, clearly not expecting this. I continued, I know that this isn't about Lily's well-being or her need for a mother figure. This is about Sarah's inheritance, which, by the way, is already in a trust for Lily's future. Karen tried to interrupt, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. Sarah and I set up that trust together. It's for Lily's education and future. It's not accessible to anyone, including me, until she's 25. Emily started to tear up. Whether from guilt or frustration, I couldn't tell. Karen looked like she was about to argue, but I pressed on. I've been patient. I've tried to understand, but using my daughter as a pawn to get money is unforgivable. So let me be clear. This stops now. No more threats, no more accusations, no more attempts to take Lily away from me. I looked them both in the eye. If you persist with this, I won't hesitate to take legal action. I'll file for harassment, emotional distress, and any other charge my lawyer advises. I have documentation of everything, including your financial motives. Karen's face hardened. You can't prove anything, she said boldly. Are you willing to risk it? I asked. Because I am. I'll do whatever it takes to protect Lily. The silence that followed was heavy. Emily was the first to break it. We just wanted what's best for Lily, she said weakly. No, I replied firmly. You wanted what was best for yourselves. Lily is happy, healthy, and loved. That's what's best for her. I stood up, ready to leave. This is your final warning. Stop now or we'll settle this in court. And believe me, you won't like the outcome. As I walked away, I heard Karen call out, You can't keep us from seeing her. I turned back one last time. I never wanted that. You're still Lily's family, but it's up to you now to prove you deserve to be in her life. With that, I left the cafe. As I drove home, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief at having confronted them, sadness at how things had turned out, but mostly a renewed determination to protect Lily and give her the life Sarah and I had dreamed of for her. When I got home, I hugged Lily tightly, grateful for her innocence in all of this. I hoped that one day, when she's older, she'll understand that everything I did was out of love for her. Now I'm left wondering, was I too harsh? Should I have given them another chance? Or was this the only way to protect Lily and honor Sarah's memory? Final update. It's been 6 months since my conflict with Karen and Emily. The aftermath wasn't easy, but things have gradually settled into a new normal. After our meeting, Karen and Emily backed off. They formally apologized, acknowledging their wrongdoing and expressing remorse for their actions. While I appreciated this step, I remained cautious. We've slowly rebuilt some form of relationship, primarily for Lily's sake. They now have supervised visits once a month. It's not perfect, but it's a start. Lily is thriving. She's happy, energetic, and growing more like Sarah every day. We talk about her mom often, keeping her memory alive. I've started a support group for single parents who've lost their partners. It's been healing to connect with others who understand this journey. As for me, I'm taking it one day at a time. The experience has made me more protective of Lily, but also more appreciative of the life we have together. I'm grateful for the support I received and the strength I found to stand up for what's right. Lily's future is secure, and that's what matters most. Now on to the next story. Story 7. My sister and her husband wanted to throw my parents out of their house so they could live happily in it, but I said no. Now I've lost my girlfriend and my sister won't speak to me. I, 32M, have a sister, 29F, who got married last month. We were close growing up, but drifted apart in our 20s. She moved across the country for work, and I stayed in our hometown to take care of our aging parents. My sister announced her engagement 2 years ago. She and her fiancé decided on a destination wedding in Bali. When she told me about it, I was happy for her, but also worried about how I'd manage to attend. There were a few problems. 1. The trip would have cost me around $3,000 for flights, accommodation, and other expenses. I'm not poor, but I'm not rich either. I work as a high school teacher, and that's a significant chunk of my savings. 2. The wedding was planned for mid-semester. Getting time off work would have been really difficult. I'd have to find substitute teachers for my classes, which is a hassle for everyone involved. 3. Our parents, mom and dad, are in their 70s now. Dad has early-stage Alzheimer's, and mom has mobility issues. They need daily assistance, which I provide. Finding someone to care for them for a week would have been challenging and expensive. I explained all this to my sister when she first announced the wedding plans. I told her I'd do my best to make it work, but I couldn't promise anything. She seemed to understand at the time. As the wedding date got closer, I realized there was no way I could attend. I called my sister about 3 months before the wedding to let her know. I apologized and explained again why I couldn't make it. I offered to throw her a small celebration when she returned, and I sent a generous gift. At first, she seemed disappointed, but okay with it. But then things started to get messy. She began posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about family who don't care enough to make an effort. Our cousins who were attending the wedding started messaging me saying I was selfish and should find a way to be there. The situation escalated when my sister called me a week before the wedding. She was crying and accused me of ruining her special day. She said I was choosing our parents over her and that I was jealous of her success. I tried to explain again, but she hung up on me. The wedding happened, and from the photos it looked beautiful. I sent her another message congratulating her, but she left me on read. Since then, she's been ignoring my calls and messages. Our parents are upset about the situation, and it's causing them stress, which isn't good for their health. Some of my friends think I did the right thing considering my responsibilities and financial situation. Others say I should have found a way to attend no matter what, as it was such an important day for my sister. I feel torn. I love my sister and wanted to be there for her, but I also have obligations here that I couldn't ignore. I don't think I'm the whole situation has me questioning myself. Some additional context that I forgot to mention earlier, which makes the situation even more complicated. About a month before the wedding, my sister dropped a bombshell on me. She called and said she and her new husband were planning to move back to our hometown after the wedding. At first, I was excited. It would be great to have her close by again. But then she explained her plan in more detail. She wanted to move into our parents' house. Her reasoning was that it's a big house, and since I'm living there to take care of mom and dad, there's plenty of room for her and her husband too. She said it would be a win-win situation because she could help with our parents' care. I was hesitant about this idea. Our parents' house is indeed large, but it's not exactly set up for 2 separate families. Plus, I was worried about how the change might affect Dad's Alzheimer's. He gets confused easily with changes in his environment. But the real shock came when my sister suggested that we should consider moving our parents to an assisted living facility or nursing home. She argued that it would be better for them in the long run, as they'd have round-the-clock professional care. She also mentioned that it would free up the house for us younger folks and allow us to live our lives. I was stunned by her suggestion. Our parents have always been clear about wanting to age in place in the home they've lived in for over 40 years. Dad, even with his memory issues, becomes distressed at the mere mention of leaving the house. And Mom, despite her mobility problems, is still sharp as a nail and adamant about staying in her own home. I tried to explain all this to my sister, but she brushed off my concerns. She said I was being old-fashioned and sacrificing my life for our parents. She accused me of wanting to keep the house for myself and of not considering what's best for everyone. I stood my ground and told her that moving our parents to a facility was not an option I was willing to consider. I also expressed my doubts about her and her husband moving into the house, given how it might affect our parents' well-being. This conversation happened just a few weeks before I had to tell her I couldn't attend the wedding. Looking back, I wonder if this disagreement influenced her reaction to my absence at the wedding. After the wedding, things got even more tense. My sister and her new husband returned from their honeymoon and immediately started pressuring me about moving in and sending our parents to a home. They even went as far as to research some local facilities and show brochures to our parents, which upset Dad greatly and led to one of his worst confusion episodes yet. I put my foot down and told them they couldn't move in. I explained that our parents' well-being was my priority and that as long as they wanted to stay in their home, that's where they'd be. I offered to help my sister and her husband find a place nearby if they still wanted to move to town, but they refused. This led to a huge argument. My sister accused me of being selfish, of hoarding our parents' assets, even though I don't have any access to their finances, and of trying to cut her out of the family. Her husband joined in, calling me a mama's boy and suggesting that I was just afraid of living on my own. The argument ended with my sister storming out, saying she and her husband would find their own place in town. Since then, they've been giving me the cold shoulder. They've visited our parents a few times, but they barely acknowledge me when they're here. I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. On one hand, I want to mend my relationship with my sister. On the other hand, I can't agree to something that would negatively impact our parents' quality of life. The whole situation has been incredibly stressful, and it's affecting my work and my ability to care for Mom and Dad. I've tried reaching out to my sister to talk things through, but she either ignores my messages or responds with rude one-word answers. Our parents are aware of the tension, and it's causing them sorrow, especially Dad, who gets agitated when he senses conflict. Some family members have sided with my sister, saying I'm being unreasonable and that a care facility might actually be better for our parents. Others support my decision, understanding the importance of respecting our parents' wishes. I'm at a loss for what to do next. I want to repair my relationship with my sister, but not at the expense of our parents' well-being. The whole situation has me questioning whether I handled things correctly. So Reddit, given all this additional context, AITA for not only missing the wedding but also refusing to let my sister move in and declining to send our parents to a care facility? Update 1. It's been 3 months since my last post, and a lot has happened. I wanted to give you all an update on the situation with my sister, my parents, and now, unfortunately, my girlfriend. First, thank you to everyone who responded to my original post. Your comments and insights gave me a lot to think about. Many of you suggested family therapy, which I tried to arrange, but my sister refused to participate. In the past 3 months, the situation with my sister hasn't improved much. She and her husband did end up moving to our hometown, but they bought a house on the other side of town. They visit our parents occasionally, but these visits are often tense. My sister still brings up the idea of moving them to a care facility, which always ends in an argument. Dad's Alzheimer's has progressed a bit. He has more frequent episodes of confusion, especially in the evenings. Mom's mobility hasn't changed much, but she's been more stressed because of the family conflict, which worries me. But the real bombshell came last week, and it involved my girlfriend, Sarah, 30F. We've been together for 2 years, and she's always been supportive of my decision to care for my parents. At least I thought she was. Last Friday, Sarah came over and said we needed to talk. She sat me down and started talking about how she'd been thinking a lot about our future. She said she loved me and wanted to build a life together, but she felt like we couldn't move forward while I was so focused on caring for my parents. Then, to my shock, she suggested that maybe my sister was right. She said that moving my parents to a care facility might be the best option for everyone. She argued that professional caregivers could provide better care than I could, and that it would give us, the freedom to live our own lives. I was stunned. I asked her where this was coming from, and she admitted that she'd been talking with my sister. Apparently, They had had lunch together a few times over the past month, and my sister had convinced Sarah that I was sacrificing my future by insisting on caring for our parents at home. I tried to explain my position again, how my parents have explicitly stated their wish to stay in their home, how moving could worsen Dad's condition, how Mom's happiness is tied to staying in the house she's lived in for decades. But Sarah wouldn't listen. She told me I was being stubborn and short-sighted. She said she wanted to get married and start a family, but she couldn't see that happening if I was going to be a full-time caregiver for my parents indefinitely. Then she gave me an ultimatum. I had to choose between her and my parents. I was shocked and hurt that she would put me in this position. I love Sarah, and I had hoped to build a future with her, but I couldn't abandon my parents or go against their wishes just to please her. In that moment, I realized that anyone who would force me to choose between them and my family, especially my vulnerable parents, wasn't someone I wanted to spend my life with. So I chose my parents. Sarah was upset. She cried and accused me of never really loving her. She stormed out, saying I'd regret this decision. She hasn't returned my calls or messages since. Now I feel more alone than ever. My sister is still barely speaking to me. My girlfriend of 2 years is gone, and some of our mutual friends are taking her side, saying I'm throwing away my chance at happiness. But despite all this, I don't regret my decision. Seeing the relief on my parents' faces when I assured them they wouldn't have to leave their home confirmed that I made the right choice. Dad had one of his clearest days in weeks after that conversation. I won't lie, though, it's been tough. I'm juggling my teaching job, caring for my parents, and dealing with the emotional fallout of losing my girlfriend and the ongoing conflict with my sister. Some days I feel overwhelmed and wonder if I can keep this up long term. But then I remember why I'm doing this. It's not just about obligation. It's about love, respect, and honoring my parents' wishes in their twilight years. They sacrificed so much for me and my sister growing up, and now it's my turn to be there for them. I'm not sure what the future holds. I'm looking into hiring part-time help to give me some break, and I'm considering joining a support group for caregivers. I haven't given up hope of reconciling with my sister someday, but for now, I'm focused on doing what I believe is right for my parents. So Reddit, given these new developments, I ask again, AITA for choosing to continue caring for my parents at home, even at the cost of my relationship? Update 2. It's been another 2 months since my last update, and there have been some significant changes in my situation. I want to thank everyone again for their support and advice. After my last update, many of you suggested looking into home healthcare services to help with my parents. I took that advice to heart and started researching local agencies that provide in-home care for seniors. I found a trustworthy firm that specializes in providing nurses and caregivers for elderly people who want to age in place. I reached out to them, explained my situation, and they were incredibly understanding and helpful. The agency sent over a representative to assess our needs and discuss options. We decided to start with a nurse coming in for 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. This would give me some break and ensure my parents were getting professional care in addition to what I could provide. That's how I met Emily, 27F. She's the nurse assigned to help with my parents, and I have to say, she's been a godsend. From the moment she walked in, she had this calm, compassionate presence that immediately put my parents at ease. Emily is fantastic with my dad. She knows exactly how to redirect him when he gets confused, and she's come up with some clever memory exercises that seem to be helping him. With my mom, she's been working on physical therapy exercises to improve her mobility. Mom's actually made some progress and can now move around the house a bit more easily. But it's not just her professional skills that impress me. Emily has this way of brightening up the whole house. She always has a kind word or a joke to share, and she genuinely seems to care about my parents' well-being. Even on her days off, she sometimes calls to check in and see how everyone's doing. I found myself looking forward to the times when Emily is here. We often chat while she's working, and I've learned that she has a great sense of humor and a really interesting perspective on life. She's told me about her experiences as a nurse, her dreams of eventually opening a small elder care facility focused on dignity and independence, and her love for old movies, which my dad also adores. I have to admit, I've started to feel attracted to Emily. It's not just that she's pretty, which she is, but it's her kindness, her dedication, and the way she lights up when talking about her passion for elder care. After everything that happened with Sarah, I never expected to feel this way about someone again so soon. But I'm also very aware of the complicated nature of this situation. Emily is a professional here to do a job, and I don't want to make things awkward or uncomfortable for her. Plus, I'm still dealing with the emotional aftermath of my breakup with Sarah and the ongoing tension with my sister. I haven't acted on these feelings, and I don't plan to for now. I'm just grateful for Emily's help and the positive impact she's had on our household. My parents adore her, and for the first time in a long while, the atmosphere at home feels lighter and more optimistic. As for my sister, there's been a small improvement. She came over for dinner last week and seemed surprised by how well Mom and Dad were doing. She even commented on how happy they seemed. We didn't discuss the care facility issue, but it felt like a step in the right direction. I'm feeling more hopeful about the future now. Having Emily's help has given me some much-needed breathing room. I've been able to focus more on my teaching, and I've even started to have a bit of a social life again, meeting friends for coffee or a movie occasionally. I know there are still challenges ahead. Dad's Alzheimer's isn't going away, and Mom will continue to need care. The situation with my sister isn't fully resolved, and I'm still navigating my own emotions about everything that's happened. But for now, I'm taking it one day at a time. I'm focusing on providing the best care I can for my parents, with Emily's wonderful help, and trying to rebuild other aspects of my life. I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Reddit, how do you think I should navigate these new feelings? Am I wrong for even considering the possibility of something more with Emily? And do you have any advice on continuing to mend things with my sister? Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your advice and kind words have meant more than you know. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.